All right, sports fans, welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by the man with the picks, Pez. His Kelly Green hat is on. He is celebrating another Birds victory as they prepare for the NFC Championship game. We're going to talk about all that and more this week on Pez's Picks. Pez, what's going on, man?
Jeff, as an Eagles fan, I got to be happy. As a gambler, we got our ass kicked a little bit in the NFL. But, we're still standing. We're above 500 postseason. We got opinions we shared with each other, before we taped. And we'll make excuses, Jeff. We'll make excuses. Any great gambler can tell you why they lost, but they really won, and they should have won, right? So, we're going to be great at that today. But, a fun weekend, fun games, Jeff. I mean, we had a fun national championship in college. But sad, too, right? This weekend makes me sad. We got 2 weeks left of football, and then you and I are going to be talking season totals in June. We start getting heated up again. But we've got March Madness. We got a lot of good things coming up.
We do. Good. We do. And so before we get into the NFL talk, because that's going to be the main crux of today's podcast, I think it's important that we talk about the national championship, which was this past Monday. Ohio State, Notre Dame. A lot of people thought that Notre Dame wasn't really at that same level. You said that yourself, both on your Instagram feed and Twitter, as well as on this podcast last week. And Ohio State's offense was just too much. Notre Dame kind of hung around with them for a while, but then you could just feel it. Like when you watch the game, you could just feel that Notre Dame didn't have the answers that they needed offensively. And you end up winning that one. OSU wins and they cover the 8-point spread. What's your take on the national championship game?
And I don't think we were the only one. I think a lot of people saw this coming. I think it was a little closer than I thought it was going to be. And a lot of people, they end up losing by 11, which, they only missed covering by a few points. I love Notre Dame. I love the style they played this year. But the second half, they kind of let Leonard off the training wheels a little bit. And the kid was throwing the ball around. You wonder if that could have been something they did throughout the first half. But Ohio State, credit to them. I know we were down on the Big Ten. I think we were correct about Penn State in the end, but I think Ohio State coaching and his name's slipping my
Ryan
mind right
Day.
Ryan Day and Chip Kelly.
How do you forget Chip Kelly as an Eagles fan?
We banned him, Jeff. We banned him from our brains. The guy was a total moron, right? But anyhow, he coached a great game. I like watching these games, and I think what NFL team would these guys be on next year? And I would take any lineman Ohio State has, or offense or defense. I'll take the receiver for Ohio State. I mean, the kid's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Howard, I wonder about that kid. Does he have the arm strength? It seemed like he had a little bit more loft in the ball than you want, especially on out throws. But I thought it was a masterful game by Ohio State. I know I was down on Day a lot as a coach. I take it all back, Jeff. I mean, they won. I don't know, are they the best team, though, right? And this is going to be interesting with this tournament every year now. Were they actually better than Georgia and Texas and some of these teams? I know in the tournament they won it, but it's an interesting kind of thing to look at compared to the old days where you might have, two teams that can pick for this national championship. So a learning curve. And I think for next year, we're going to be more dialed in regular season. In this NIL year, I mean, this guy did a great job. They must like him on his team. He kept his core team together and his core practice team. I know Notre Dame did as well. And a good season. I think we ended up at 54% for the season. It was 33-28 college football. Yep. Happy about that. As we talked a lot, Jeff, felt like, we were on the ropes. We were like that Jake Paul beating up Mike Tyson. I was Mike Tyson, but we kind of – a tough thing to figure out. And right. I hope they get this together for college football. We need a salary cap. We need a transfer deadline. You can't have guys cherry picking guys the day of bowl games, right? What is going on there? So hopefully that happens, but a fun year. I kind of like the tournament. I became a fan more we watched it.
Final score was 34-23. Notre Dame does get a late touchdown, which kind of made that a little bit closer. And it was tight there at the end, but that 8-point spread, not an issue for Ohio State. It's interesting. I'm a Steeler fan, so clearly I follow the team closely in the offseason. And it's interesting to see what the Steelers did as it pertains to pro days. So last year was the first year in Mike Tomlin's tenure. He's been there a long time, since 2007. They did not attend Ohio State's pro day. Why?
Wow.
They all came back. None of the players that were viable candidates to be drafted in 2024 were entering the NFL draft. They were all staying. just like Michigan is experiencing that now. I doubt that, he would go to Michigan this year, but I guarantee you he'll be at Ohio State. These teams are navigating these waters in a new way. NIL money, you mentioned both of these teams, Notre Dame and Ohio State, gave out about $20 million to their teams in
Unreal.
2024. But let me ask you this, Pez, because we do finish the season 33-28. Do you feel like in 2024, the college football season, we learned enough that we will have a better grasp on things next year? Or is this going to be literally turning into an NFL offseason where you have to watch player movement and kind of get a feel for who went where? And every year it's the same evaluation process as you get closer to the playoff.
I don't think it could be harder than it is. Maybe the hardest season we've ever gambled, Jeff. Right. I don't know if it's possible. How can you predict an Indiana who's taken some JMU guys and a bunch of backup guys and make them a stud team? I mean, I know they didn't perform well in the postseason, but who could see that coming? It's going to be difficult. I think it's going to get more difficult. I think what we learned, though, you can't bank on teams winning games and looking at games as important as we used to. There were certainties in college football that, teams needed this game. They're going to win this game. I don't know if the players and the coaches are looking at it as much as that this year. It became more of kind of a pro-leaning gambling sport. I don't think home field advantage is as much as it used to be. And I wonder about playing. Are we going to see shared time between quarterbacks to try to hold one or two of them? Texas, I know we had this debate all year who was a better quarterback, and now Wolves is going into the draft, and I guess Manning's sticking around. So yeah, you are correct. It is a nightmare for a gambler, college football right now. And I think what we learned, we probably had too much action in the beginning. We were probably banking on the past a little bit in the beginning. Florida State, huge letdown for us, really cost us some money. Teams out west, Arizona was a letdown for us. Nebraska, a little bit of a letdown, some injuries. So I think what you have to do is kind of go back to my old sage buddy, Yogi. You got to go in light. You got to take the first few weeks and really, it's going to be evidence you see, not evidence on paper as much as we're going to use in the NFL.
Now, let me ask you quickly, keeping with college football, you talk about the NIL, the movement and stuff. Do you feel, and maybe you haven't been paying close enough attention to answer this question, but do you feel it'll be the same type of protocol with the college basketball as we get into the month of February? Now we're starting to talk about March Madness. Do you feel that this is more of a football problem, or is this a collegiate athletics problem?
Is basketball, I don't know this. Is there a deadline you can transfer and still play? I mean, I don't think you can play this season, but
I don't think so either.
But can you pick players away throughout the season? Is there going to be pressure on college coaches to kind of play more guys because they don't want to lose guys who might be getting a couple minutes of burn a game? And then at the end of the season, they're like, screw you, and they get picked up by another, top 10 team or something. I don't know. I worry about that. I don't think in basketball it's going to be as bad. I just don't. I think you're going to see core teams are going to stick together. You don't have to carry as many guys. I mean, you're talking 7-8 guys. If you're solid on them, you can win a national championship. So, and you're not going to lose practice players. College basketball is notorious for having, guys at the end of the bench with high, GPAs, and they're good guys. So you're not carrying, blue chip guys on your second team like Georgia, like Texas, like all these big college teams. So I don't expect college to be as bad. We've been watching it. It's not the product it used to be either, though. It's a little bit more of a, less fundamental basketball and more of an athletic basketball, kind of like we see in the NBA. And it's something we're going to have to really punch the numbers on. We have about a month before the tournament. NBA, same problem right now. It's become a season that this part of the season, I don't think anybody cares right now. When Baltimore Boston went 8-8 over a 16-game period, there's no way the Boston Celtics are going 8-8 in the NBA when they're really putting an effort in. And I feel like their team's resting guys, with kind of phantom injuries. And so that's something I also think has changed. And we're going to get heavier on that in the coming weeks. President's Day, mid-weekend or mid-season is kind of when you can really jump on basketball. And we're kind of eyeballing that. But we'll get started earlier, Jeff. We've got a couple weeks there to play and kind of make some action.
Well, before we go to the NFL, I want to say this. Like, I know there's people that love the NBA. I think the NBA sucks. I think it's awful. I just think that it's not entertaining. The players don't play that often. You can't rely on them to play. How the hell are you supposed to bet on the Lakers if you don't know if LeBron James is getting a load management game.
Sure.
And that makes it really tough. I think a lot of
Sure.
people have been waiting to see your plays on the NBA, but I think that's fair from a bettor's perspective or from a person that is doing some handicapping to say, I'm not ready to jump in on this because right now they're not even sure what the hell they're doing. You think that's fair?
Well, I appreciate it, and I do, and I think it's sensible when you have a product like the NFL. That, when we're looking at it as invested money, right? We're using data, so you know who's playing each week in the NFL. There's a guaranteed injury report. You get fined, you lose draft picks. There's an expectation of players to show up. What do you have? 17 games, and I mean, there's money on the line, bonuses. So that is a way better and cleaner and more logical investment than NBA basketball. And we did pretty well in regular season. I remember last year, I don't know, we're around 60 or 60-some%. But then in the playoffs, we took off early. In the playoffs, in the NBA, you're going to get what you expect to get for the most part. They have to play or they're going home. And these guys are playing for big money deals and overseas money. But it is something that I think you can make money right now. And it's why we have this network, associates, degenerates, as KT Smith calls us, but that I can lean on, who are going to pick up on these things. They're going to, where they're going to set these lines, and there will be guys that are going to be announced. You might have windows to get plays in before the line adjusts to the roster announcement or guys sitting out. And that's kind of the deals we're looking for. Traveling in the NBA is something that is notoriously a big gambling situation. Midweek, if you're going from the East Coast to a cold West Coast team, especially a fun town, Denver or Vegas, guys they don't tend to play too well in that first game. They're booking fun stuff going out and whatever the hell the NBA guys are doing. So those are the little things, the advantages we're going to be looking for, and we'll be punching the numbers. And, Cleveland right now is looking like a winning team, and I like to see that. It's a good young team.
Yeah, and they're playing hard because they,
sure
as you said, good young team. So we'll see if they can keep that up throughout the rest of the season. But let's go now to the National Football League. Everyone wants to talk about the NFL. Of course, there's a big gambling weekend coming up as we come off the divisional round. Divisional round was extremely exciting. A lot of fun football games. Not a lot of fun for your picks as the Detroit Lions do not cover. They don't even win outright against the Commanders. We'll talk about that in a second. Philly, we have a push. That line was at 6 when you said it, and I know some people had 6.5, some had 5.5. Nonetheless, Jake Elliott sucks, so that's a push. And then you have Buffalo at Baltimore, or versus Baltimore. You took Baltimore -1, and Buffalo wins outright. What was your takeaway from the divisional round?
Well, we kind of, we had a lean on Houston, and that made me feel good. That line ended up, they were getting 9.5. I think when we talked about it was 8.5. So I thought to myself, all right, we're on to something here. That game played out like it was expected to. Washington, Detroit, I don't know. I know people liked Washington. They're big on Daniels, but when you look at 3 interceptions from Jared Goff, who had going into the game, I believe 9 or 10 going in. I don't know if you can see that coming. And it's something that we went back, we looked at every game. There has not been a playoff game where the winning team had more interceptions than the losing team. It just hasn't happened. It is kryptonite. I think it's more important now, protection of the ball security from the quarterback position, than possibly it's ever been in the NFL. When you punch the data on interceptions, and I don't want to share too much of our algorithm, Jeff, but if you're in a 50-50 situation game, a 3-point game, maybe even a 1-score game, one interception drops your chances of winning from 50-50 or around there down to 38%. You throw a second interception, you're dropping into the high teens or low 20s, depending on the time left in the game. So the data is there that interceptions, the quarterback is what I'm getting at, can more likely lose you games at this point than win you games. And I was talking about with another associate of mine, you look at these games this weekend, who would have thought this many quarterbacks with 150, 180 yards passing? Nobody's lighting up 250, 350 yards at this point and consistently winning. I think the coaches know what we know. Interceptions, in some ways, and I'll probably get attacked on, interceptions might be more important and more damage than actually scoring points. So when I hear Jalen Hurts getting attacked, he stinks, this guy, that, I remind everybody, since 2021, Jalen Hurts is the second highest winning percentage quarterback regular season and postseason behind Mahomes. He edges out Allen and Lamar. And I know he's not the best passer. I would never say that. But he has a sense of the game. He's not losing the games for the team. He's doing things that are making the team in positions to win. And I think we see a little bit of that with Mahomes. They're not trying to light up the scoreboard. They're trying to tick the clock, ball possession, take some pressure off the defense, score it, and do what you need, right? So, and interceptions is something that are unavoidable and you can't win. They're gambling kryptonite. We saw it happen with the Rams. We saw it happen with Detroit. And we saw it happen with Buffalo, right? And, in Buffalo, and I love Lamar. This guy loves the game, but he throws a pick. I mean, we've got fumbles. What do they lose? 2 fumbles, so that's 3 turnovers. That team should have won by 14 to 20 points, right? They should have won by 2-3 scores. And, people are blaming Andrews, and, maybe the guy picks that up. They probably do win in the overtime, but you're not going to blame that guy. You can't turn the ball over. So we're going to look at that going into this week. Ball security, I think, is just beyond measurable at this point in importance right now.
And that's going to make this upcoming slate of games really intriguing because you have 2 outdoor venues. Not that the dome mattered at Ford Field in terms of the Commanders and Lions, but the fumble issues can be related to a cold, dense football, which does not have its usual feel to it. But let's take a look at the upcoming NFC Championship game. It's the first game on the docket on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles in a divisional game. They went 1-1 against the Commanders this season. They are hosting the Commanders. What's the current spread that you have on this game?
So currently the Birds, I have laying 6. And if you can get that number right now, I think it's the number to get. That line's been kind of steady so far. Generally, Philadelphia Eagles get late money on them. Philadelphia is probably a little bit more of a gambling town than Washington, D.C. They got a lot of cops down there, Jeff. They got the FBI building. So organized crime doesn't happen in D.C. But anywho.
It's a different kind of crime. It's a different kind of crime.
It's a very unorganized crime down there. But they're making money, right? We should be in that business.
There you go.
Why am I not in the front row with the internet cronies? Billionaire. Pez's pick should have a spot there, Jeff. We're going to get management. We should have lobbied to be on that. But anyhow.
There you go.
This is an interesting game. And you will love it, Jeff. If Philadelphia Eagles fans, they hate the Eagles. We're winning. And I'm getting texts about how Hurts sucks. If we only had Daniels, we've been Super. We have not ever had a rookie quarterback start a Super Bowl game. So that alone eliminates for me taking Daniels in Washington this week, right? When we're presented, it's kind of like the Kevin Malone from The Office. When you get 10,000 to 1 odds, you jump on it. Who am I to bet against history, right? Jalen Daniels been great. Is he the historically greatest rookie ever? I don't think so, Jeff. Especially going up against the best defense in the league. So when we look at analyze these 2 games, Hurts did not finish the second game. So that's a tough one to analyze. And I know Daniels kind of lit us up. I think when the starting quarterback goes out, that can be just as much of a hit to the home team as the visiting team or the team that he's on. So maybe a little bit of exhale from the Eagles, maybe a little bit of worry. Anyhow, Daniels in 2 games, 3 picks against the Eagles. When we really punch the numbers, offensively, Washington comes in, they're scoring 28 points a game. Birds come in scoring 27 points a game. So all this over-attacking Jalen, he can't throw it, he takes sacks. They're still scoring 27 points a game. When we look at the defense, Washington's allowing 23. The Birds are only allowing 17. When we look at postseason numbers, and go ahead and attack me if you want, Jalen Hurts, one of the better postseason quarterbacks since the 2000s, I would argue. 4-3 career, 6 straight postseason games without a pick. He threw 2 picks his first postseason game. He has not thrown one since. 7 touchdowns and 2 picks career. Against Washington, he's 6-3, but that's counting the game he tapped out after 4 or 5 throws. So we're going to put him at 6-2, 12 TDs, the 3 picks career. He's got 3 300-plus yard throwing games against Washington career and 1 at 296. So 4 times he's thrown 300 or more yards. I like the Birds to win this game. And you question the health a little bit. I imagine that Jalen Hurts is healthy enough to play. I think his throwing game is going to be healthy enough to throw the ball if they need to. You wonder about this. They averaged 219 rushing yards a game against Washington this year. Washington comes in. If you take away Daniels, they're averaging about 55 yards a game. So if you can hand the ball to Saquon, and if you can hand the ball, if Jalen can run the ball a little bit here too, why throw the ball? I keep telling people, why would we throw it? We're winning games. We're ticking the clock. We're taking pressure off the defense. that's something I think that people underestimate a lot in the pro game. It's ticking the clock. It's limited possessions. It's classic Steelers football, Jeff. And I'm telling you, I think the Steelers, they took Tomlin's playbook. I love it, Jeff. I love it. I've been telling Coach KT Smith how much I love it for a long time. Our secondary, Kenyon Mitchell, we got to make sure that he's playing. I read that he is. I think he got a stinger. We all thought he broke a shoulder or something. Looked to be like a stinger. And Jalen's playing. I mean, they announced today Jalen and him are playing. I'm going to say they're both going to be around 100%. Birds -6. Daniels, he did run the ball real well against us last time. This is their 4th road game in a row too, Jeff. I mean, they started this tour a month ago in Dallas. They've been all over the country. That's got to take a hit on you. Different climates. I mean, 4 weeks in a row you're traveling the NFL. That's insane, right? So Birds -6. I love it. I think this is an easier Birds victory. And that's leading us into the Super Bowl, Jeff. I can't wait. I mean, it could be Jalen's second in 3 years, and we're putting the haters to shame. Pez's picks and Jalen, we're putting the haters to shame. This isn't a homer pick. Of course, I want them to win. Birds right now are tied for number 1 in the NFL against the spread. They come in at 12-6-1, so or 12-7-1, I believe. A fantastic year and a fantastic team to get to gamble on, Jeff. I mean, this team, you're at about 68%, I believe, doing quick math in my head, and that's phenomenal against the spread.
All right, so the first time these two teams played, the Commanders lost 26-18. All right, then the second time they played, the Commanders won 36-33. That was the game that Kenny Pickett had to come in and play. Jalen Hurts, I believe it was it a concussion or was that a shoulder? I can't remember.
Concussion. He's kind of had, those games. I believe the second game, Daniels ran for 81 yards. When you take away his running yards, that team, like I said, they're averaging about 55 yards a game.
Well, but how can you take away his rushing yards, though? Because he actually ran for those yards. That would be like when the Steelers played the Ravens in the wild card round. They're like, well, if you take away Derrick Henry's 120-plus yards, we actually held him. We actually did a good job. Sure. You can't. He did it. I think, I'll tell you this. I'm not saying that I think that the Commanders are going to win the game, but I think that they're going to keep it close. This 6 point scares the hell out of me. And they've scored points. If you go back to their final, let's go back to, okay, so they beat the Saints 20-19. After that game, their point totals have been 36, 30, 23, now playoffs, 23, 45. 23 points has been their lowest point total in like the last 5 weeks. I feel like that's going to be around what you're going to need to get to win this game. And since Austin Eckler's come back, both of those backs, it changed their running game. Now Jaden Daniels is feeling healthy. I'm saying the 6 point scares me. Now it's your show, but I'm just giving my own input.
Well, and I appreciate all that. And when we say if you take his running numbers, Jalen or Jaden out of the picture here, we're not saying that we want the Eagles to stop it. We want him running. You want a rookie quarterback running, taking hits, feeling a little bit, chased, and that's going to lead to turnovers. I'm feeling 2 picks from him in this game. Pressure's going to be too much. They're going to force it. If he can run and he can throw and he can beat us in that way, then God bless him. I mean, the guy deserves to be in it. But I just don't see it yet, Jeff. And you got to prove it to do it in the NFL. And,
I get it.
I think the 6 tells us that Vegas and sports books, the analytics say the Birds are going to win this game. They're not giving away gifts, right? And that's the biggest spread. I think the first game of the second game of the season, it opened at 7 and dropped to 4.5. I think 6 is dead on.
So my only question for you before we leave this game and move over to the AFC Championship game is if Jalen Hurts is not mobile, does that concern you in terms of the Commanders' ability to just key on Saquon Barkley, knowing that Hurts is not healthy enough to run? He can throw still, obviously, but he's not the threat to run with those run options that they like, the read options. What's your thoughts on that?
So, like we mentioned, I mean, in his career, he's played 8 full games against Washington, the Redskins, and Commanders combined. So 4 times he's been 300 or more yards. One was 296, but we'll give him those 4 free yards. So what I continue to argue, I don't think Jalen Hurts isn't throwing the ball as much because he can't, because he's not able to make the reads or whatever the criticism I'm hearing here around Philly when they're attacking him. I think he's doing what is the game plan. Be conservative. Know you can run the ball. Know Saquon can run the ball. And if he's needed to throw, Jeff, especially against this team, I have no doubt he can put up 300 yards. So I think this is a week that both teams are going to come in And I think the Eagles are going to be prepared to do that. And I think last week that they wanted to do that, but the weather was just horrible, the wind, the snow. I think it's a big throwing week for Jalen Hurts, and I think they're rolling into the Super Bowl with whoever wins in this next game. They're going to be on their heels a little bit, trying to focus on what to focus on.
All right, fair enough. Let's go to the AFC side of the docket. The Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills. They're going to face off in the nightcap. This is going to be a 6:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. And the current spread that I'm seeing, and I want to ask what you have with yours, I have Kansas City laying 2. Is that accurate for you as well?
I saw on one this afternoon or two, I saw -1.5 for KC.
Okay.
If you can find that, I think you jump on it. And this game's tough. I mean, we have to bet it though, right, Jeff? I mean, how are we not betting this game? You got to bet it. There's some weird numbers with this game, and I got my associate, the Sling Man, who's our go-to horse betting guy, but he's good with football numbers too, Jeff. Did you know, Jeff, the Sling Man is part of an operation. They're selling snow from the football game last night. It is certified Philadelphia Eagles snow. It comes in a box.
I saw that for $50.
I think the Sling Man's involved somehow, Jeff, and he vouches on his name that's authentic snow from the stadium. What's
Who's buying that?
I guess people are buying $50. So we punched some numbers, and the guy's a genius with this stuff. If you look at the regular season, and I had to check this 3 times, Josh Allen comes in 4-1 regular season against Kansas City Chiefs, 10 touchdowns to 3 picks. I mean, unbelievable numbers. In the postseason, he is 0-3 against Kansas City Chiefs, but he still has seven touchdowns and 1 pick. So what we're taking from this is Josh Allen, he's going to have a great game. I don't think they're going to run the ball. I don't think the Chiefs are going to allow easy red zone touchdowns. I mean, Spagnuolo, this guy's he's a genius defensive coordinator. He's proven that every postseason. When we look at offensive, defensive numbers, KC's defense comes in. They're giving up 19 a game. Bills defense giving up 22. So that's a 3-point advantage right there. Kansas City's defense, 9th overall, 8th against the rush. I think they're going to shut that down. They're going to let Josh Allen, be Superman. I think that's the right call. He's lit this team up, and what it's equated to is him losing in the playoffs. So, this is going to be a very tough game, but, you can't be the champ till you beat the champ. So when we look at Mahomes, 1-4 regular season against the Bills, he's actually horrible. 10 touchdowns to 8 to 7 picks career. In the playoffs, it's the complete opposite of Josh Allen. 3-0 in the playoffs versus the Bills, 8 touchdowns, no picks. So I don't know how we can't take that. So what I'm suggesting in this matchup, especially the regular season, forget about it, right? But I don't think Mahomes is the same guy regular season. Kelsey, I don't think they coach the same. I think the Chiefs put it into an extra gear come playoffs. I like Pacheco in this game, and I like the Kansas City Chiefs -2. I love them all day in this situation. I just love them.
I understand everything that you said, and it makes total sense because, like you said, until they win in the playoffs when it matters the most, how do you bet against them? But man, do I hope they lose. I'm so sick and tired of the Chiefs and Mahomes. I like Andy Reid, actually. I have no problems with him. But the way that the games are officiated, I talked about that with Coach Kevin Smith on our NFL Whip Around podcast on the FFS and NFL feed earlier this week. It's just frustrating. I'll put it that way. It's just frustrating. But they get those calls. And so from a betting perspective, you would think, hey, that's more reason to put your money on the Chiefs.
I agree. And, this is not Mahomes' best season. He's 26 touchdowns, 11 picks, but he does. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is Mahomes. Mahomes way more talented guy, but I think that their game plan as quarterback is similar. They're great managers. They're thinking constantly out there about the situation and the score. They're not guys out there just trying to pump stats. They're trying to win ball games. And to me, a quarterback that's more of a ball player than a quarterback, who's out there with frosted tips like that guy in Cincinnati. Not a fan, Jeff. I like a guy who doesn't give a damn about the numbers. All he cares about is the W. And I think this game's gonna come down to turnovers, right? And who is more likely to throw an interception in this game? It's in Kansas City. Kansas City's defense is better. Josh Allen, I love the guy. I love this game. We're talking heavyweight on heavyweight. This is Foreman Ali, which happened the day I was born, Jeff. And I am a Muhammad Ali fan and the greatest boxer ever. I'm going to contend, and I can't wait for this game. just as excited about this game as I am the Birds. Having said that, the data tells us that Kansas City is the play, and they're the champ, right? I mean, how could you bet against them? It's like betting against the Pittsburgh Steelers to not go 500 or better every year. Who's doing that? 20 straight seasons, right? So until that doesn't happen, I'm betting that every year, Jeff. I'm betting the house on that next year. I think the wife's cutting vegetables, but she doesn't care, Jeff. As long as we got somewhere to sleep, we'll be fine.
There you go. All right, Pez, there you go. There are your picks, folks, out there for the AFC and NFC Championship game. We're taking the Eagles -6, and we're taking the Chiefs -2. Any final thoughts about this upcoming weekends of games?
Can't wait, Jeff. And as we encourage, for the gentlemen out there, and I hope we have some female listeners and NFL fans, but for the gentlemen, classic on this weekend. Take the family out for breakfast. You go to some pancake house. If you have small children, you go somewhere with some character or something, some furry bear that you take pictures, and you pretend to have fun even if you're not. You order everything. You get them all sugared up. You go home. You get the whole day for football. And you're a hero, right? You're a hero. Then you order some pizza. You tell the wife you love them and, you appreciate them. Clean up the kitchen a little bit before the game. We really keep moving, Jeff. It's something that we've adopted in Pez's picks, and it helps with the marriage and the football. I think it's why the Philadelphia Eagles are winning, Jeff. You got to have harmony in life. I learned that in yoga.
Hey, there you go. You're a yogi. All right.
That's right.
Sounds great. Hey, enjoy the game. Root for your Birds. Have some fun. And we'll be back next week, Pez. In the meantime, take it easy.
Let's go, Birds.